So slide your glass over.
Getting to the bottom of that one already.
Yeah, well, it's late. The city has finally quieted down, The ambient anxiety of the workday is wearing off. And since you're sitting here at my favorite corner of the bar, I want to pitch you a post-mortem on a company you've probably never thought of.
Ah, another tech unicorn crash.
No, no. See, we spend our entire lives obsessing over these modern tech unicorns.
Mm-hmm.
You read the articles about startups hitting a billion-dollar valuation, and everyone treats the founders like they just came down from the mountain with fire.
Right, the typical Silicon Valley savior complex.
Exactly. But if you want to see the ultimate spectacular corporate flameout in human history, we have to look way back. Forget Silicon Valley. We are diving into the Western Chew Empire today.
Ah, Western Chew. That is, well, it's the perfect late-night case study. A totally minimalist empire. Really just a meteor that burned with a brilliance that blinded everyone, and then in a historical blink of an eye, just vanished completely.
And the founder, our CEO for tonight's deep dive, is Xiang. Now, before you roll your eyes or before your eyes glaze over thinking this is a dusty history lesson about guys in robes swinging swords, stop.
Yeah, we're not doing a history lecture tonight.
Erase that from your mind entirely. Look at this strictly as an autopsy of a startup business model. We are going to break down this guy's absolute borderline psychopathic decision-making logic through the lens of modern corporate strategy.
Which is fascinating because he is the prototype of a founder whose ambition vastly outpaced his structural competence.
Right. And if you are a novice boss listening to this, trying to build something of your own, Xiang is the ultimate cautionary tale on how to ruin a perfect launch.
He really had everything going for him at the start.
Consider this setup. Imagine a founder who enters a national startup competition. He doesn't start in a garage eating instant ramen, okay? He enters with massive aristocratic backing.
The ultimate trust fund kid.
Basically. He secures the equivalent of like an $800 billion angel investment right out of the gate, generational wealth, deep networks, instant brand recognition, and his personal stats.
Off the charts.
Absolutely maxed out.
Yeah.
He is the smartest, the strongest, the most charismatic guy in the room. He can outwork, outthink, and physically outfight 10 people at once.
So naturally, he takes over the market.
He does. But then he completely crashes and burns in his early 30s, loses the entire monopoly. How does someone holding every single winning lottery ticket go bankrupt that fast?
Well, to understand the bankruptcy, you really have to look at the market conditions of the initial public offering, so to speak. The late Qin dynasty was essentially a chaotic demolition site.
A beautiful disaster.
Exactly. The old legacy monopoly, the Qin Empire, had just collapsed practically overnight. It left this massive market vacuum.
It was an absolute free-for-all. Like a brutal national startup competition where literally everyone with a pulse was trying to grab a piece of the market share.
And into this vacuum steps Xiang. As you noted, he wasn't bootstrapping. He was a noble from the former state of Chu. But what really allowed him to capture the market so aggressively in this initial phase wasn't just his deep pockets.
No, it was his operating style.
Right. It was his operational strategy. The historical texts paint a picture of a pure, unadulterated, violent aesthetic.
A violent aesthetic. Let me translate this into some serious modern corporate nonsense for you, just so you can picture how this guy operated. You know, the Battle of Julu.
The famous one, breaking the cauldrons, sinking the boats.
Yeah, in history books, it's famous for that idiom, smash the pots and sink the boats. But let's modernize it. Imagine you are working for a startup.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You are pulling up to the office for a massive hostile takeover bid against your biggest rival, right? And your competitor is 10 times your size. You're nervous.
Anyone would be.
So your CEO, Xiang, calls an all-hands meeting in the parking lot. He drags out the company's entire annual bonus pool in cash, pours lighter fluid on it, and strikes a match. Then he takes a crowbar to the engine blocks of the company shuttle buses.
That is quite the HR violation.
Total HR nightmare. And then he turns to you, his staff, and deadpans. There's no bonus. There's no ride home. If we don't liquidate the competition by 5 p.m., we starve on the pavement.
I mean, it sounds like a fast track to a modern labor lawsuit for sure. But historically, the mechanism behind that strategy was purely psychological and incredibly effective.
It works?
It does. During the actual Battle of Julu, the sources note he gave his men exactly 3 days of rations. Just 3. Before destroying their cooking equipment and crossing the river and then, sinking the ships.
He wasn't just being theatrical to get likes on LinkedIn.
No, no. He was intentionally stripping away the basic human instinct to retreat.
Because cornered animals bite the hardest. It bypasses the logical brain and goes straight to the survival instinct.
Exactly the point. When you corner your own workforce like that, when you mathematically remove any possibility of a fallback plan, you generate an aggressive momentum that no calculated spreadsheet-driven competitor can handle.
They don't know what to do with that crazy energy.
Right. The Qin army was relying on traditional supply chain logistics and calculated risk. Xiang Yu just paralyzed them with sheer shock and awe.
So from a market acquisition standpoint, it was a clean win.
A total sweep.
Yeah.
Practically overnight, he became the undisputed, domineering CEO of the entire Chinese market.
Okay, I'll grant you that. I will. But that is my primary problem with this guy as a business model. And it's what I tell young founders who think they need to act like sociopaths to succeed.
Oh, absolutely. The model has a shelf life.
A very short one. Relying on pure adrenaline and the literal threat of starvation works for a week-long sprint. You can rally the troops for one crazy sleepless product launch.
But you cannot run daily operations like that.
Exactly. What happens on day 2 when you actually own the market? You can't burn the company buses every Tuesday to hit your quarterly targets. People will just quit.
And that is exactly where the corporate flameout begins. Acquiring a monopoly requires ruthlessness, right? But managing it requires infrastructure.
And he had none.
Xiang Yu possessed the former and entirely lacked the latter. That brings us to his core structural hangover. The historical records essentially describe his mindset as a retro brain.
A retro brain coupled with the personality of an absolute power freak. It is the ultimate contradiction.
It's a paradox he couldn't escape.
It's like installing an MS-DOS operating system on a quantum computer. It is going to crash. He had the strength and the vision to completely overthrow the old world, but his idea of how the world should be organized was clinging to 2,000-year-old aristocratic rules.
Right, he was looking backward instead of forward.
He had absolutely no clue how to manage the new reality he just built.
He fundamentally misunderstood structural logic. The preceding Qin dynasty had built a centralized bureaucratic state, a unified corporate structure, basically.
Which makes sense for a monopoly.
Exactly. But Xiang Yu looked at that modernization and deliberately chose to tear it down. He reverted to a pre-Qin system of feudal enfoufflement.
Okay, let me break down this tragedy for any novice bosses sitting here with us. Let's go back to our analogies.
Let's hear it.
Imagine our domineering CEO has just built a brand new 100-story corporate skyscraper. The entire global market belongs to him. What does he do?
He definitely doesn't hire an HR department.
Nope. Instead of building a unified, centralized corporation with HR, payroll, and a logical chain of command, his retro brain kicks in. He decides to run it like an ancient kingdom.
So he just starts giving away pieces of the company?
Yes. He hands out the individual floors of this new skyscraper to his junior partners and regional managers. He says, you get floor 40, you get floor 60. You have total autonomy. Run your floor however you see fit.
But the paradox kicks in because his personality cannot handle the autonomy he just distributed.
Right. Because he's a power freak. He gives them total operational autonomy, but still expects them to ride the elevator down to the lobby and kiss his ring every single morning.
Which is never going to happen.
Never. And then he acts completely baffled, like genuinely shocked, when the guy he handed the 60th floor to inevitably decides, hey, I have my own staff, my own revenue stream. I think I'd like the penthouse suite.
Of course they rebelled. It's a coup waiting to happen.
Guaranteed.
And if you look at the causality of that decision, in historical terms, giving away territory in a feudal system doesn't just mean giving someone a fancy title.
It's not just a nameplate on a door.
No, it means giving away the regional tax base and the right to conscript a local military. By handing out those floors without a binding corporate framework or a centralized treasury, he wasn't just delegating authority.
He was arming them.
He was essentially funding and arming his own competitors. He gave them their own sovereign wealth funds and private security firms, and then asked them nicely to remain loyal.
So to summarize his management style, and let me know if I'm off base here, he was a founder who refused to hire HR, didn't write any company bylaws, gave away his equity to independent contractors, and just banked entirely on his tough guy vibe to keep the board of directors in line.
That is painfully accurate. He genuinely believed his personal charisma and his reputation for overwhelming violence were sufficient to hold a completely fragmented empire together.
Unbelievable. But let's pour another drink on that thought because it leads to an obvious question.
Sure. What's that?
If his management structure was that historically flawed, and we agree it was a disaster, why didn't his overwhelming personal strength just bail him out again?
Ah.
Because we established at the start the guy had maxed out stats. He was a literal war god. If the regional managers on floor 60 act up, why doesn't he just take the elevator up, kick the doors in, and clear the field like he did at Julu?
Because his greatest strength and his fatal flaws were two sides of the exact same coin. The texts characterize him as a too real tough guy.
A too real tough guy. What does that actually mean in practice? He like believed his own press releases.
Kind of, yeah. It means his empire wasn't ultimately destroyed by a lack of military strength or even entirely by his terrible organizational chart. It was destroyed by his aristocratic stubbornness.
His stubbornness.
Yes. He possessed a rigid, romanticized code of honor that prevented him from doing the dirty work required to maintain a monopoly.
Oh, this is the gaming analogy.
The gaming analogy.
Yeah, look, if you play competitive video games, you're going to understand his downfall perfectly. Xiang Yu is like a max-level gamer in a massive esports tournament.
Okay, I follow.
He has god-tier gear, his mechanics are flawless, he can outplay literally anyone in a one-on-one fight. But he ends up losing the entire championship. Why? Because he finds grinding the dungeons too tiring.
Right. He despised the mundane, repetitive realities of the long game.
Exactly. He wants the glorious cinematic boss fights. He wants the highlight reel. But he hates the daily grind of farming resources, doing the boring side quests, and managing his inventory.
Which is what actually wins the game.
Yes. And worse, when he finally gets his main rival cornered, this scrappy, underhanded, completely unglamorous guy named Liu Bang Xiang Yu lets him go.
Multiple times.
Multiple times. He had his massive leading advantage, but he was reluctant to actually finish off his opponent because he thought it was dishonorable.
He really did.
He thought sneaking around and crushing a weaker rival in cold blood was beneath his aristocratic dignity. It wasn't a cool enough win for him.
You're referring to the broader dynamic of the Chuhan contention. Zheng Yu treated a fight for the survival of the fittest like a gentleman's fencing match.
Which is insane when the other guy's using a shotgun.
Exactly. If an opponent yielded or seemed thoroughly beaten, his aristocratic code often prompted him to show leniency. He expected that his display of dominant mercy would secure permanent submission.
Oh, what a rookie mistake.
It is a fatal miscalculation in a volatile market. And this is where we see the tragic shift in history that this entire deep dive revolves around. Xiang Yu died in his early 30s. He crashed that hard, that fast.
Right.
But his death wasn't just the end of a startup. It marked the absolute end of the heroic, romantic, warring states era of business.
The era where competitors supposedly respected each other's honor, where you fought face-to-face in the open market, shook hands, and respected the gentleman's agreement.
When Xiang Yu slit his own throat at the Wu River, he took that romanticized version of market competition to the grave with him.
Wow.
What replaced it was Liu Bang's era, a new, entirely ruthless market governed by the principles of what later scholars would coin as thick black theory.
Thick black theory. Man, for anyone sitting at the bar who hasn't brushed up on their ancient Chinese Machiavellianism, that is a dark survival philosophy.
It really is.
It basically dictates that to succeed, you must have a face thick enough to endure any shame or humiliation and a heart black enough to do whatever ruthless thing is necessary to win. No morals, no bottom line, just pure, unadulterated pragmatism.
And Liu Bang was the ultimate practitioner of thick black theory.
The master of it.
He didn't care about looking cool or maintaining a violent aesthetic. He didn't care about aristocratic honor. He only cared about survival and market dominance.
Yeah.
There is a famous historical anecdote that perfectly illustrates how Liu Bang weaponized Xiang Yu's honor against him.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
During a standoff, Xiang Yu captured Liu Bang's father and placed him on a talking block, threatening to boil him alive if Liu Bang didn't surrender.
And a guy with a retro brain expects the opponent to weep, surrender, and do the honorable filial thing, right?
Precisely. That was the script Xiang Yu understood. But Liu Bang, operating on thick black theory, simply yelled back from across the battlefield, "We are sworn brothers, so my father is your father. If you boil our father, be sure to send me a bowl of the soup."
Send me a bowl of this soup. That is ice cold.
And Xiang Yu's honorable brain completely short-circuited.
He didn't know what to do.
No, he couldn't process that level of shamelessness. He didn't kill the father. Liu Bang used his absolute lack of shame as an impenetrable shield against Xiang Yu's rigid morality.
That's brilliant in a terrifying way.
If Liu Bang had to hide behind civilians, he hid. If he had to sign a peace treaty just to break it the moment Xiang Yu turned his back, which is exactly how he finally cornered Xiang Yu at Gaixia, he did it without a second thought. Xiang Yu simply could not adapt to a market that played dirty.
So it begs the question, is it possible for a startup founder to be too capable?
What do you mean?
Like, you're so good at the visionary stuff, so incredibly talented at the big dramatic moves, that you actually look down on the dirty, boring, daily grind required to survive when the market turns hostile. You rely on your talent so much that you never develop calluses.
It's exactly what happened here. When things come too easily in the beginning, when your initial funding is unlimited and your early victories are flawless, you never develop the resilience or the dark pragmatism needed for the long haul.
Right, because you never had to.
You become inflexible. You become so attached to your identity as the honorable, domineering victor that you refuse to pivot your strategy when a scrappy, shameless competitor starts eating your market share from the bottom up.
Man, that is a heavy tab to pay. So as we look at the bottom of the glass here, wrapping up this deep dive into the Western Chew, it really was just a meteor.
A meteor. It existed for only a few short years. It reshaped the entire landscape, created a crater that defined the next dynasty, but vanished as quickly as it appeared.
So for the novice bosses out there, the founders scribbling business plans on cocktail napkins tonight, let's review the tab. Let's make sure you don't repeat the Xiang Yu speed run to bankruptcy.
It's a good list of what not to do.
Lesson number 1. Do not rely entirely on a violent aesthetic for long-term growth. Okay? Screaming at people in the parking lot and burning the boats might get you through a rough first quarter, but psychological terror is not a sustainable corporate operating system.
No, you will eventually burn out your talent pool.
Exactly. Lesson number 2. Ensure your organizational structure matches your actual ambitions.
Right. If you demand centralized control and absolute loyalty, you cannot build a decentralized, fragmented structure based on outdated feudal rules. Handing out independent profit centers and hoping for the best is just funding your future usurpers.
You're just paying people to replace you.
Yeah.
And finally, lesson number 3. Do not let your aristocratic stubbornness stop you from dealing with competitors.
You have to get your hands dirty.
If you are operating in a ruthless market, you can't play by the rules of a country club fencing match. You have to be willing to do the boring, ugly grinding. You have to recognize when the rules of the game have shifted to thick black theory.
Yet, even as we dismantle his business model, I think we have to acknowledge the sheer gravity of his legacy.
Oh, for sure.
Historians and executives look back and call Xiang Yu foolish for letting his empire slip through his fingers. They analyze his structural failures. But for those few short years, you cannot deny his impact. The entire earth had to hold its breath and listen to his roar.
Yeah, that's true.
He commanded a level of raw, visceral awe that his rival, Liu Bang, despite securing the ultimate monopoly and founding the Han Dynasty, could never quite replicate in the minds of the people.
Yeah, he was the ultimate shooting star. He lost the company, but he won the myth. Which leaves me with a final late-night philosophical question for you to mull over on your walk home.
All right, lay it on us.
Knowing what we know now about the mechanics of power, if Xiang Yu were a tech CEO today, sitting in a glass boardroom, would he even want to win if it meant he had to play dirty? If it meant he had to embrace that thick black theory, swallow his pride, and lose his aristocratic soul just to pump up the stock price?
That's the real question.
And honestly, look at your own life, your own career. When push comes to shove in the market, would you rather be the glorious, uncompromising meteor that burns out in spectacular, honorable fashion at 30? Or the ruthless, thick-faced survivor who actually ends up owning the company?
Something to think about.
Think about it. Have a good night. We'll see you next time.